Nancy Johnson is the WFWA guiding scribe, and I saw her speak at the conference in Chicago in 2023. I really liked her energy and her everything she had to say. And this year I got to know her pretty well. She and I worked together on the Novel Chat Q&A in the online community. I don't know if anybody here has attended those live streams, but we do them approximately once a month, depending on Nancy's very busy schedule. But it's a great opportunity for you to get one-on-one advice from someone who's been where you are now and has succeeded on that route. So I want to tell you a little bit about Nancy. Nancy is a native of Chicago's South Side. Nancy worked for more than a decade as an Emmy-nominated, award-winning television journalist at CBS and ABC affiliates in markets nationwide. Her second novel, People of Means, is a story of race, class, and resistance in 1960s Nashville and 1992 Chicago. It was released earlier this year from William Morrow and HarperCollins. People magazine named it one of its most anticipated books for 2025, calling it beautifully crafted and propulsive. Oh, that's a great word. People of Means has also been featured as one of the best books of 2025 by Women's World, Real Simple, and Southern Living magazines. Nancy's debut novel, The Kindest Lie, was reviewed by the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Los Angeles Times, and was highlighted on Entertainment Weekly's Must List. Her first novel was a New York Times Editor's Choice selection and was named one of the most anticipated books of 2021 by Newsweek, the Oprah magazine, Shondaland, NBC News, Marie Claire, Elle, the Chicago Tribune, Good Housekeeping, Parade, Refinery 29, and more. You guys are in for a treat. Nancy is a graduate of Northwestern University and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Nancy lives in downtown Chicago, where she's a director of brand journalism and storytelling for a large healthcare nonprofit. Please welcome to the stage, Nancy Johnson.
Keeping my water nearby because I always losing my voice. So, can you hear me? Yes. Okay, good. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. Being here with all of you, it really is like coming home. You were talking about the OGs of WFWA. I'm definitely one of the OGs. I was here at the very first retreat in 2015, and I remember what it felt like to walk into Hotel Albuquerque, to go out on that patio and sit with my computer and just engage with everybody. And it was such a good feeling to be surrounded by all of these other women who love writing, who love books as well. And I have to say, I attended probably about 3 years in a row back then, and then I didn't come back until 2023 when I was at that conference. And now to be returning here, I feel that same sense of energy and community, and it certainly feels like a return home. So I just want to thank all of you who are attending. Thank you to Debbie, to the board, to all the volunteers, because this has been a flawless retreat. I don't know how many of you remember the documentary in the late 80s called Eyes on the Prize. And it was a documentary, yes, you had a clap there. No, good. It's a brilliant documentary about civil rights in this country, about the experiences of Black America from the 1950s onward. So you learn about voting rights and the March in Selma and the Montgomery bus boycott, all the atrocities that Black folks had to endure in those days. The big dogs, being chased by police dogs, being hosed, being beaten, lynched, all of that. So much ugliness, but the beauty of Eyes on the Prize was that it was speaking to where the community is or was at the moment, and that they always kept their eyes on what the prize was, and that prize was freedom, it was equality under the law, it was justice. And so that's my message for you all today, in a different context, to keep your eyes on the prize. And I believe for all of us, the prize, or a big part of the prize, is seeing our work, our books, out in the world, and that somebody is holding that book or listening to your book who is not part of your bloodline, right? So, your life, when you think about the life that you're living, it's very similar to the characters that we portray in our books. There are going to be highs and lows, and we know to make our books more interesting and compelling, we throw everything we can at our characters to give them more complexity, conflict, all of that. And so I just want you to know that after you listen to that beautiful introduction of me, everything that Debbie said was true, but you all don't know who I was before all of that. And I have to say that I almost didn't make it here. It started off really well when I was a little girl. I had a big afro, and my parents would dress me up in the finest clothing from Marshall Field's department. That was a department store that was the precursor to Macy's. Yes, and they would take me into the restaurants and meet the wait staff, and I was just so full of life and full of confidence until third grade, when I met my bully, a girl named Tanya. She was larger than I was, she was older because she'd been held back a few grades, and she bullied me relentlessly every single day. And so I began to figuratively lose my voice. And so the girl who was so confident and always saying, me, to the teacher, I started to shrink within myself and lose my voice. And then fast forward, after graduating from college, I was also met with a lot of disappointments. I had a hard time finding a job in my chosen field of journalism when I graduated. My college boyfriend cheated on me. Oh. I know, right? Such a jerk, right? And then, in addition to those things happening to me, I also was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And so I was at this really low point, and I started to believe that I didn't have anything to live for. And I ended up on suicide watch at a local hospital for 3 or 4 days. So those were some of the lowest moments in my life. And I don't know how, I never know exactly what the turning point was for me, but at some point I began to believe in myself, believe that I was here on this earth for a purpose. And I talked about keeping your eyes on the prize. I didn't know what that prize was. I didn't know I wanted to be a fiction writer at the time. I just knew that God had a reason for me being here, and I needed to fulfill whatever that purpose was. And so I want you to think about, I know each of you have your own story, not just your characters, but you have a story of your own. And you're going to be bombarded with a lot of messages. Different ones of you are on different parts of your journey to publication, or maybe you're already published. But you will hear messages from agents, editors, even other writers. I don't think in this community, but you'll hear people who will tell you that you're not good enough, that your story isn't good enough, isn't worthy of being told. I want you to ignore them. Yes, listen to critiques and feedback to improve your work, but never let anybody tell you that you don't have a story that's worth telling, that's worth being published. So I want you to believe in yourself and believe in the possibility of what you can do with your work and with your words. I want you to walk into every room knowing that you own the room, that you belong in that room, because you'll be walking into all kinds of rooms. People will make you feel small and like you're not worthy, and I want you to know you are worthy indeed. It hasn't been an easy journey for me, so that's why I like to tell this, because when people hear that your book has been featured in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or Entertainment Weekly or any of these others, people assume that it's been an easy journey. It has not. I remember writing 25 pages of my first novel, The Kindest Lie, to get into Eckerd College Writers in Paradise. It's a conference, it's a great conference, they still have it in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I studied under 3 different authors each year. It was a juried workshop. And I studied under Ann Hood, Laura Lippman, and Lori Roy. And one year, while I was there, the author Ann Patchett came, and some of you have heard this story, me tell this story. But Ann Patchett is this renowned author, right? And so she was sitting around with a group of us after our classes, maybe about 15 of us, in a bar-like setting, and she went around and asked each person, where are you in your manuscript? And one guy said, oh, I'm on my second draft. Went to the next person. The woman said, oh, I've written about 100 pages of my book. And then she turned to me and she said, well, what about you? Where are you? And I said, oh, I've written 25 pages. And she gave me this look and just said, oh. And then she went next and moved on to the next person. Yeah, and so I was like, oh my God, I was proud that I'd written that. But the deal is, I would write 25 pages every year, but go home and not work on it anymore. Until it was time to apply for that workshop again, and I would write another 25 pages, and I got accepted every year for 3 years. Obviously, I was not ready yet to commit myself. And then I went and listened to another author, a Chicago author, Lori Rader Day. She's a mystery writer. And I told her I've been stuck at 25 pages. And her recommendation to me was, challenge yourself to write 50 pages. And then once you've written 50, challenge yourself to write 100 pages. And once you have gotten to the 100-page mark, she said, you're not going to want to feel that you wasted all that time and all those words, and you're not going to want to go backwards and leave it at that. And so that's what I did. That's what helped me move beyond those initial 25 pages, and I was able to get unstuck. The next part of the journey was querying literary agents. I know many of you are in that stage right now of querying agents. I'm not like many of you who have a spreadsheet, so I don't keep track of how many, but I do believe I queried at least 100 agents over a 2.5-year period. And I remember this one experience at the Muse in the Marketplace conference in Boston. And I was sitting across from an agent that I had submitted my 25 pages to for critique. See, that 25 is recurring, right? Everybody wants 25 pages. It's the magic number. And so I was sitting across from her. She had already read my pages, and she was one of my dream agents. And then she looked at me, she leaned in toward me, and she whispered, oh my God, I love this. Don't talk to any other agents here. And so I'm like, oh my God, this is it. This means that I have made it. I am going to, be agented and get my book deal, and it's all going to happen fast. Well, she wanted the full manuscript. Then I sent it to her. She said that there were some things that she wanted me to revise, so we did a revise and resubmit. And because she said she liked what I sent, but she wanted some revision. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I get an email from this agent, and it said, while I enjoyed your rewrite, unfortunately, I didn't fall in love, and I won't be able to represent you. And I was devastated. Like I said, this was 2 days before Thanksgiving, right? So it's like I didn't have anything to be thankful for, at least I didn't feel like it at the time. And so the person I call, the shoulder I cried on, is my literary bestie. Her name is Julie Carrick Dalton. Some of you may know Julie. And I met Julie at this retreat in 2015. And that's how our friendship started. So I want you all to think about the people sitting next to you and around you. These are the pivotal relationships that are going to carry you through your journey, through the ups and the downs of the journey. Yeah. So, yes, I was devastated, but I continued to query agents, keeping my eyes on the prize. I always knew, and Julie and I admitted this to each other later after we were published, that even in the midst of all the rejection, because we had our eyes on the prize, of getting a book out there in the world, we knew we would do it. Even if it was not the path that we had chosen, the traditional publishing path, but we knew we would do it because we would keep making our book the best it could be and get it out into the world. And that's the passion you need to have for your work, right? Because no one's gonna believe in it as much as you will. So I continued to query agents, and then there was an agent who rejected but gave me some actionable feedback. That's the thing, you always have to look at what you get back. Sometimes you're gonna get the form rejection, just sorry, no thanks. But there will be times when you will get feedback that you can use, and that is absolute solid gold. And this particular agent gave me some feedback, and so as I always do, I sent a thank you note. I always did that if anybody sent me anything other than a form rejection. So I sent her a thank you and said, I plan to revise based on the feedback that you've given me. She wrote me back, which is not a common thing. And she said, if you plan to revise, then send me the book again. So I was really excited about that, but I did not make the mistake of just doing a quick revision and sending it to her right away. So when you're in that kind of a situation, know that an agent is going to be willing to wait for you to make sure that book is ready. So do you know how long I waited before I sent it to her? Again, 1.5 years. I took 1.5 years to revise. I did the Tin House Summer Novel workshop excerpts. I did Kimbilio Fiction, which is a fiction writing workshop for African American writers. And then I had my beta readers. And many of those, I'd say like 4 out of the 5 beta readers I had were people that I met here at WFWA at the retreats. So those were my beta readers. I knew one was great at character development, one was great at plot, somebody else was a dynamo at suspense. So I picked people who could give me the kind of critique I needed in the areas in which I needed that critique. And so, like I said, I fast forward 1.5 years, I sent my revised manuscript to that agent, like, remember me? And she did remember, and she offered representation. Yes. And so then, once you get an offer of representation, you probably heard, you then send your manuscript out to all the other agents or contact the other agents that have your manuscript and are considering it to ask them to read early. And so that's always the fun part where, they're kind of begging you for more time because they know somebody wants it. As soon as they know somebody else wants you, it's kind of like dating, Somebody else is interested and now I'm interested in you. You become more attractive. And so I had 2 offers of representation in the end and went with the agent who was the first one to offer. But the journey to getting agented and to getting a book deal is not always easy. But I got that agent after 2.5 years of querying, and then we revised a bit, and then we sent it out on submission, and I have to tell you that I got my book deal in 2.5 weeks. Yeah, so everybody's journey is different. My friend Julie, she got her agent very quickly, whereas it took me 2.5 years, and then she was on submission for a much longer time. I don't know if it was 1 year or close to 1 year before she got the book deal. So you really have to know, just like as Vanessa Riley said to us, your journey is yours, so you really can't compare your journey to anybody else's. You all know Michelle Montgomery, many of you do, who leads the writing dates. Love Michelle. Michelle has been my accountability partner from The Kindest Lie to People of Means. And I read her most recent novel, and it is brilliant. It is magical realism. It is paranormal, but not ghosts and vampires type paranormal. It has suspense in it, and she queried dozens of agents, but she got rejected by those agents. The agents said, your writing is beautiful. And she gave me one of the quotes, "You're clearly a skilled writer, and it's a highly original story," they said, "but I can't find the right home for this in the current market." But she kept her eyes on the prize. It is frustrating, I heard someone say. No, that's okay. I like it when people talk back. It's like church, like a church. Amen, right? Yeah, call and response, I'm all for it, so feel free to shout out. So Michelle kept her eyes on the prize. She wanted her book out in the world. She wanted to publish. And so what she did was she pivoted. And so she started sending her manuscript to small presses. And Black Rose Writing gave her a book deal, for her debut novel, which is called Adventures of a Maybe Human. It is very, very good. I read it, and critiqued and all that, and I just think it's phenomenal. And it's going to be coming out April 16th. So just to show you that if you keep your eyes on the prize and you stay focused on getting published or whatever that goal is for you, it can happen for you, even if it means pivoting and not doing the things the way you thought they were going to be done. Also, listen to your intuition. Don't focus too much on the market. Yes, it's important to understand the market. When you're talking to agents and editors and publishing houses, they want to know that you understand the world of publishing, that you know where your book would sit on a shelf. So that's important. But the voice you want to listen to the most closely is the one inside you. That's your gut, that's your intuition. I was thinking about Henry Ford and him devising or coming up with the Model T. And he said that he didn't ask for public feedback, which most people in that situation would have done. What is it that we should invent next? He did not ask the masses. He's famous for saying he didn't ask them because they may have said, well, I want faster horses, right? And so what he did was he invented something that revolutionized transportation, and he went beyond what was expected of him at the time. That's a great example of keeping your eyes on the prize and focusing on what you know that you uniquely can do and add to your industry. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone is an American hurdler, one of the best in the country. She has set records for the 400-meter hurdle, and I've seen interviews with her where she talks about being a hurdler. And she says that she doesn't look at the person in the lane next to her to see how they are doing their hurdles. And she's not looking down at her hurdle that she's about to leap over. She stays focused. That's why I keep doing this. She looks out ahead. She's focused on her gait. She's focused on the rhythm, all the things that she needs to do to be able to sail across those hurdles. Another thing you want to do is never stop learning, never stop improving your craft. I don't care where you are in the journey. I think it was Anita who asked me today at lunch, like, why are you here when you've got these, books published? And I was saying to her and the other ladies at lunch that, yeah, I attended every one of Vanessa Riley's sessions, and I learned so much from that. The learning never stops. You're always here to improve your craft. It doesn't matter how many books you have under your belt, you can always get better. And that's something you want to keep practicing, is your craft. And so I'm always trying to get better. But sometimes you have to, on this journey, alter your course. I talked about keeping your eyes on the prize and knowing where you want to go and what you want to do. My one prize was to be a published author, to have my books in the world. But my other goal, my other prize, is to become and be a career author. I have 2 books under my belt, but I wasn't trying to be a 1-book wonder, and I'm not trying to be a 2-book wonder. I want to keep publishing, and I want this to be my career. That's important to me, and I believe many of you are in this as career authors as well. But sometimes you have to make changes. I told you all about the journey and how hard it was to get my literary agent. What I didn't tell you yet is something that I have not talked about publicly until now, and that's that last month I chose to part ways with my agent. Yeah, and so that was a really difficult decision to make, to do that. I think sometimes you outgrow the people in your life, even the people in your business life, but I'm always and forever grateful to her. She's the one who brought me to the publishing dance. But now I believe that to take the next step in my career, that I need a different agent with different skill sets, different priorities, different connections, all of that. And so it was one of the most difficult conversations that I've ever had to have, because this is a wonderful person. But So now I'm out there, I'm in the query trenches again, right? That wasn't part of my plan, to be back out there looking for an agent again. But I am. I do think I'll have a pretty good shot because I have been published before and I've been agented. And there are so many authors, including authors that I've met through WFWA who I've told this to and have said, oh, I would love to introduce you to my agent, and so I haven't gotten to that stage yet. But when I do, I know that I'll have a community of people, of writers, who will have my back in that process. At a time when the world is a dumpster fire and things are more divided than they ever have been, we really need your stories. We need your stories more than ever. I'm reminded of something that Casey Lehman said to me. Casey Lehman is a memoirist. He wrote the memoir Heavy. I highly recommend it. I met him at Tin House Summer Novel Workshop when I was a student in 2018, and he was one of the instructors. And he came to Chicago to do an event to promote his book, Heavy. And I went to it, and he signed my book, and what he wrote inside my book said, "Make us read your work." He said, "Make us read your work." And that's what I say to you all today. At first I didn't really understand that, because that's all he wrote in his name. He said, "Make us read your work." But what I believe the challenge to me is the same challenge that I give to you, to write work, write words, write books that are emotionally resonant, write books that are true. And by true, I'm not talking about nonfiction versus fiction. I mean true in terms of revealing universal truths about the human condition, about who we are. Make us read your work because it's just that damn good that they can't turn away from it. And I mean everybody reading your work, the agents, the editors, the reading public, make them read your work. I share a story of another part of my why, what my North Star is, what the prize is for me personally. I've said it is getting my books out into the world, people reading them. It is being a career author, but it is also more than that. It's the connection that I make with the readers. And that has been more important to me than any of the accolades that you heard in the introduction. Those things all feel good, and I hope they will help me to expand my territory and get more people reading my books. But I spoke at Fisk University. My most recent novel, People of Means, is set at Fisk University. It's about a mother and daughter, Black mother and daughter, coming of age at different moments of social and racial reckoning in America. The mother is a student in the late 1950s at Fisk University in Nashville at the time of the sit-ins at the 5 and dime lunch counters. And so she's trying to make some decisions in her life about how involved to get. She's trying to find her voice. And then 30 years later, we meet her daughter Tulip in a similar situation, but in 1992, she's working in public relations at the time of the acquittal of the officers who beat Rodney King. So we've got a mother and a daughter, both of them thrust into these major moments of social change in America, and they have to figure out how to use their voice or whether or not they want to do that. And so I was invited to speak to Fisk University about a month ago. And so I gave my speech, and then after the speech, people were in line for question and answer, and a man came to the microphone and he said, "I don't have a question." He said, "I want to tell you about a comment on the live stream." They were live streaming it, and he said there was a comment there from a 17-year-old young woman who said that she heard my story about my own journey of losing my voice, figuratively, as well as my characters trying to discover their voices as well. And she said she has been going through a really tough time where she has not been believing in her voice, that she has anything to say. And she said, but after hearing you and talk about your book and your own life, she said, I believe now in the power of my own voice. Mm-hmm. And people just teared up. It was such a moving time, it was a moving moment for me, because that's what it's all about. What I'm doing and the work I'm putting into the world, hopefully I'm touching people's lives. And if I did something in what I wrote or in what I said about my own journey, for that 17-year-old girl to believe in her own voice, then that's really what my work is all about. And then I had a similar situation. There are a lot of these stories, but one more I'll tell you, and this is when I was doing a book club event for The Kindest Lie, my first novel. The Kindest Lie is the story of an unlikely friendship between a successful Black woman and a poor young white boy in a dying Indiana factory town. And so you have the main character, Ruth, goes back to her Indiana hometown to find the son that she walked away from when she was just a teenager so she could pursue her dreams. And when she gets to the town, she encounters this poor 11-year-old white boy who is looking for a mother figure. And so that's kind of what sets the story in motion. And I was doing a book club in Chicago. It was a virtual book club, and it was an all-white women book club. And there was a white woman in the audience who said to me, she said, "My father and I have never in my life had a civil conversation about race, ever." And she said, "I plan to buy The Kindest Lie and gift that to him and have us read the book together so that we can finally have a dialogue about race." And so that was pivotal for me too. When someone says something like that, and if I could help repair a relationship like that and get them talking and having meaningful conversations again, that is the prize. There is no better prize. So I ask you and challenge you to walk in the shoes of someone through your stories. Help us to walk in the shoes of somebody whose life experience is different from your own or from their own. I said the country is a dumpster fire right now. Make us laugh and smile in a dark world. Bring that light in a dark world. Make us care about people. Make us empathetic. Make us feel human again. Make us feel alive with story. Most importantly, keep writing, keep producing good work, keep telling stories that are resonant and emotionally true, and most of all, keep your eyes on the prize. Thank you.